have been chosen and will be allowed to return home under one condition. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today I am super excited to be here with author PJ Shepherd. PJ is the author of the Where Creatures Hide book series. If you haven't heard about this series, it follows a deity princess who plucks humans from their various lands in order to save her own. Each book tells the story of one of these humans as they are whisked into a land of magic and danger, all for the sake of one goddess's scheme. So PJ has recently released the third book in the series called Where Rogues Hide, which follows Evangeline, a barmaid who is kidnapped by a demon prince and forced to sire his child. Evangeline is a badass, amazing heroine, and this story follows her journey of overcoming darkness and turmoil and ultimately making the world a better place. PJ is based in New Zealand and I am here in Canada, so we are on the Facebook Messenger app right now doing a video call. So that is why we are in separate rooms, and thank goodness for modern technology which makes this possible. So how are you, PJ? We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I am good, a little bit sick, but other than that, amazing.
Awesome. So before we get into talking about your books themselves, I really want to talk to you a bit about your process as a writer, because as a lot of my viewers know, I am also an aspiring author, so I'm really interested in the process that different authors use. So when did you first realize that you wanted to be an author?
I first realized when Twilight was a thing, and like it was like the biggest hype on earth, and I was pretty much writing fan fiction, but like of my own characters, but it kicked off from there.
Amazing. So how did you get started in writing?
I actually got out a few things that I thought would be cool to show. You know how I said that it all started with Twilight and how I just pretty much wanted to write fan fictions of that? Well, for Christmas I got a bunch of Twilight journals. I don't know if they were like over the world, but these were like a big thing in Australia at the time. I'm from New Zealand, but I was living in Australia. And I just remember wanting to fill them with made up scenes of like Edward and Jacob, but they weren't Edward and Jacob, they were my characters. So these are the very first books that I like ever wrote, kind of a thing, and that's how I started writing, because I was like just wanted to fill out the journals with 12y wishes.
Aww. It's like fan fiction, but not.
But not, yeah.
That actually answers my second question, which was, what is the first thing you ever wrote?
Oh, no, actually no, that doesn't answer the very first. So the very first thing I wrote, I remember it vividly because the character I used, his name is Alex, and he's actually in the very first book, and he's one of the characters that has like always been in my mind. He was like the Edward of my imagination, but not Edward. And so he's really, you know, come into my adult life, and he's made a name for himself in, you know, my series. And I was sitting at my nan's, I was really young, I had a refill paper, and I pretty much just wrote about these friends that went on a road trip, and they were at a hotel, and this girl woke up. It was real dumb, this is so stupid, but it was so cool to me because I was a 12y. But this girl woke up and she wanted a drink of water, and then she got a drink of water, and then she like smashed the glass and tried to pick it up and like cut her hand. And then like Alex woke up and he was like, oh my god, are you okay? And then she's like, I'm fine, and like rushes to the bathroom, and he's like, let me in, like let me look at it. Was so stupid.
Like 12y
dreams.
Oh my god.
Yeah, she's a bit cringe.
You write books faster than many authors. You've released 2 in the last year, if that's correct. So how long does it usually take you to like make your first draft, but then actually finish the book and release it?
The first book took 1 year and 7 months. The second book took 7 months, and then the third book took a year, only because it was longer and, you know, I used different processes. And the second book I remember really pushing myself to the point where I was very sick, but it was like, that's why it got out so fast, because it was like I was awake day and night, and that's why that book was pushed out so fast. Whereas Where Rogues Hide, I was like a little bit more chill and calm and slow. But also with Where Puppets Hide, a lot of research had to go into that, so it was, you know, you didn't want to offend people, because there was like, you know, gypsies and other ethnicities in there, and you know, trying to crack onto the timelines and everything like that. So it really depends on how much research goes into the book and how much I've outlined it and how much beta notes I get.
So I just want to clarify, if any viewers haven't read PJ's books, the first one is called Where Creatures Hide, the second is Where Puppets Hide, and the third is Where Rogues Hide. So if you hear us talking about these, those are just the different books in the series, and Where Rogues Hide is obviously the most recent release. So how much research do you usually do when you're writing?
So with Where Creatures Hide, it wasn't a lot at all. It was mainly from my imagination. With Where Puppets Hide, as you heard in the last question, it had a lot to do with like gypsies and timelines and things. With Where Rogues Hide, again, more of the imagination because it's all fairy tale and made up. But with the fourth book, the one that I'm currently outlining, it requires a lot of research because it's something that can offend a lot of people because it is true to culture, and if I get it wrong I'm going to offend a lot of people, so a lot of research has to go into this current book, which is going to really halt the next release date because of, you know, how in depth I need to do it.
What is your schedule like while you're writing?
So I found that my schedule works as like 1,000 words a day, and if I don't do 1,000 words a day then I'll do it the next day, but it's always 7,000 words at least a week or more.
Wow, yeah. You're a machine. The last thing I want to ask you before we really get into talking about your books themselves is, do you have any weird habits as a writer or while you're writing?
Yes, I do. I've got a few. One of them is when I'm working at work, because it's such a chilled place. You know, we're in a coffee cart in front of the park and, you know, people walk by. I do this thing where I try and imagine a scene or try and imagine what's going to happen in the scene, but I look at people and I don't realise it, and so if they're looking at me I don't note it, and then I just look like a creep, but I'll follow them. Like if they're moving I'll just follow them. Like real dazed out. It's so weird. The other thing is I make facial expressions when my characters, or I write my characters making facial expressions, or I'm trying to guess what kind of facial expressions they're doing. So like if they raise a brow, you see me go like like real weird. You're gonna walk in and I'll be like trembling lips and weird shit like that. Like it's so weird. It's not something that you want to see. That's why I do it in my room.
So let's talk about your books then. You have developed quite a following over the last few years, obviously through your amazing writing, but also you're very great at marketing and social media, and so I'm sure your following is keen to know more about this current release. But before we talk about this actual third book, I'm really interested to know about your series as a whole. So would you say that there's any recurring themes we can find across the series?
Yeah, one of the reoccurring themes is how each individual handles or deals with their darkness, and I explain, like, you know, a character as a puppet soul, which is, you know, equivalent to your darkness, depression, anxiety, guilt, insecurities, anything that is not nice in you, and showing people how, you know, they react to it, because not everyone reacts to depression the same, not everyone reacts to anxiety the same, not everyone reacts to, like, you know, grief or, you know, things the same. So it's really different characters showing different ways that they deal with it. So in the first one, she's very scared of her darkness. In the second one, Luna uses it for power, and then in the third one, Evangeline is like accepts it and says like, you're gonna walk hand in hand with me, like side by side, and we're in this together kind of thing. So she's not afraid of her darkness. So it's really how everyone reacts. There's a big scene in Where Rogues Hide which really explains the depth of what that darkness can do to you. Like it's like a weight on your shoulders. But yeah, so it's just teaching people how different people react, and I feel like that's why people are like, I can relate so much to this because that's how they feel or they react or they see things. So yeah.
So kind of along similar lines, what do you think makes a good story, or what keeps readers interested in reading?
I feel like what keeps readers interested in reading is definitely caring about a character, which is your main goal for authors. So I feel like finding some way to make your character really relatable or really amazing, or just creating like a really interesting character, because, you know, you'd want to read about that character more and more and understand who they are and how they are and what they're going to do next because of their reactions.
I think I would agree with that. Like most of the time when I read books, well, plot is obviously important, but if the plot's great and you hate the character, it's hard to get invested. Now we're going to talk about your next release, which is Where Rogues Hide. So the protagonist's name is Evangeline, and I would like you to summarize her character for your readers in 3 words.
Stinky, horny, and caring.
I love your sense of humor.
Actually, and that's all me, in parts.
How did you come up with the idea for her story in particular?
I was writing Where Creatures Hide, and I only had 3 characters in there, and someone was like, sis, you gotta add more characters because we want some side characters, blah blah blah. And so I added her in there, and then someone else said, well, I want to know of her backstory. And so I was trying to think of that while I was writing Where Creatures Hide, and I wrote a scene where she had like a flashback of what was her life before, which is pretty much, well, literally what happens in Where Rogues Hide, but I had to guess it. So like, you know, every single storyline that's in Where Creatures Hide and are in other books, I've had to guess. So I guessed it because I needed to guess it for Where Creatures Hide. Where Puppets Hide was from a music video, and Where Creatures Hide was from a movie, but this one, no, it was a bit of guesswork, but it's my favourite book, so that's good.
So if you had to ship Evangeline with a character from another book, which I know might be hard because I think this story is a bit of a romance, but if you had to pretend that her love interest here didn't exist, who would you ship her with in any other series? So
she mainly likes girls. And I was trying to think of like some girly characters that likes girls, and literally the only one I could come up with is Moore. Or if it was a guy, I'd probably say Jace.
From the Shadowhunters series?
Well, I suppose that they're very similar, like in a way. Like very rogue and dark and likes to chill with themselves.
So that's actually a great jumping off point for my next question, which is, as a bisexual woman yourself, I know that diversity in books is really important to you. So I was curious to know if we're going to see any specific representation in Where Rogues Hide.
Yes, the protagonist is bisexual as well as a couple of other characters, which is very exciting. So I explored that a little bit in the book.
Do you ever base your characters on real life people, or are they all entirely imaginary?
There are a few characters that are based on real life characters. Uma is based on my little sister because she's a little shit, and Uma's a little shit. So Aziel is based off my mum and my dad. Ava, Evangeline, is actually based off my brother, which is really awkward in the sexy scenes. So. Quite strange. Nadia is based off just my mum, and Susie is based off like mine and my sister's relationship.
Without giving us any spoilers, because we don't want to ruin it, what was the most difficult scene to write in Where Rogues Hide?
The most difficult scene would have definitely been the birthing scene. That's not a spoiler because you already know that it's going to happen anyway. I had to really research into that because you couldn't just be like, hey, she just popped out a baby, bada bing, bada boom, baby. No, I had to really research it and, you know, take other mothers' words for it, and also the whole impregnating without forcing it, you know, like I had to figure out a way around that so that it's still considered YA and not destructive to the protagonist, because it's all the way at the beginning. It's not in the middle or the end because it's, you know, it's not the plot.
This is not a story in which the protagonist is raped by her love interest.
Yeah.
Good clarification. My next question is, if you had to pick a spirit animal for Evangeline, what would you choose and why?
I would pick, oh, she's very like, I'd probably pick a hyena, one of the cackling ones. Because she really likes food. She's a vampire, so like, you know, blood and stuff. She's just real confident and real like, you know, slithery shadow. Oh, maybe a snake. Oh, I don't know, something sharp with sharp teeth.
And my final question is, one thing I really admire about you is how open you are on social media and how much you really try to inspire and educate young readers. So I guess I'm wondering, if there was one thing that you hoped readers would take away from your stories, either a lesson or, I don't know, something that changes them, what would you hope that would be?
Learning how to deal with what's going on inside them. When I started the series, I was, you know, very, very sad, very depressed, and I was my main character, so she starts off, you know, very much like that, and then leads up to her, you know, coming out of it and learning from it. And then I realized that, you know, with the second book, bada bang bada boom, I'm sad again. And then I had to learn how to do it again, and I realized there's more than one way to, you know, cope with this and handle this, and I want others to feel like they can, you know, not just see it as, oh, I mustn't be depressed because I'm not reacting like this, so it's all in my head or something like that. So I feel like just owning, you know, what you have inside and accepting it, and if you need help, you need help. If you don't, then that's... My book just focuses on, like, you know, the different reactions of people handling, you know, the darkest parts of the story in their lives. So just learning how to deal with yourself.
And how to overcome as well, because I think you always have this hopeful message, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, every character in the books overcome it somehow. Some accept it, some are stronger with it, and some learn from it. So yeah, definitely.
So that concludes this interview. Thank you so much, PJ, for being here. And to all of you, if you are interested in reading these books, which I highly recommend, then you can purchase them on PJ's website, which is wherecreatureshide.com, or online on Amazon, Book Depository, or the Barnes & Noble online store. As well, make sure you follow PJ. I will put all her social media links in the description. She's very active on Instagram, so if you want to be very involved in her fandom community, I would highly recommend following her there, at author PJ Shepard. Thank you again for coming on here and sharing about your process and your work. I really admire your spirit and your dedication to your craft. So, a round of applause for you.
Thank you so much for watching and having me on. I really appreciate it. You're so sweet.
As always, thank you so much to all of you for being here, and I will catch you next week. So make sure you give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel. I love y'all. Bye.